Today, I will crush these Sioux and build a fort to shield your people, General Custer vowed, his buckskin-clad figure atop a restless horse, golden hair catching the dawn of the 25th of June, 1876. White man runs him, a Crow scout gripping his rifle, deerskin tunic worn from the trail, stared down at 4,000 Sioux warriors. Their 2,000 Tippis a defiant sprawl across the Little Horn Valley. Historians note Custer's 268 men faced a force 10 times their size. Why did he charge into certain doom, ignoring the scouts' warnings? Discover the truth through a native's eyes, where duty and survival clashed on a blood-soaked plain. White man runs him, a Crow elder, stood on the brink of eternity, his weathered hands gripping the weight of history. In 1920, decades after the Battle of the Little Bighorn on the 25th of June, 1876, he vowed to share the unblemished truth of that fateful day. As a scout under General George Armstrong Custer, he carried memories as sharp as the Montana winds, untouched by exaggeration. His duty was sacred, to preserve the story of his people and the clash that claimed 268 soldiers. Historians, like Robert Utley, affirm that native accounts, often sidelined, offer critical insights into the battle's chaos. His testimony counters Eurocentric narratives, which often glorify Custer's ambition while ignoring the Crow Scouts' vital role. This pledge reflects a deep respect for truth, ensuring the voices of the plains endure. His commitment elevates native perspectives, challenging the bias of military records. By grounding his story in first-hand observation, he bridges a gap in historical understanding, offering a lens unclouded by myth. The scouting party, led by Mitch Boyer, a skilled guide of Sioux and French descent, comprised 6 Crow warriors: Half Yellowface, White Swan, Goes Ahead, Hairy Moccasin, Curley, and White Man Runs Him. Each wore deerskin tunics, their rifles slung across their backs as they navigated the rugged Montana terrain. Boyer, fluent in Sioux and English, was indispensable, translating orders and reading the land's subtle signs. The Crow Scouts, born to these plains, knew every ridge and river, from the Rosebud's banks to the Little Horn's embrace. Their knowledge guided Custer's 7th Cavalry, a force of 600 men, through treacherous ground. Historians, such as John Gray, note that native scouts were often the backbone of frontier campaigns, yet their contributions remain under-celebrated. The team's unity, blending Crow resilience with Boyer's bilingual skill, was a linchpin in the campaign. The scouts' expertise reveals their critical role, often overshadowed by Custer's legend. Their intimate connection to the land contrasts with the soldiers' reliance, highlighting a cultural divide rarely acknowledged in official reports. Curley, a young Crow scout, stood as a witness to White Man Runs Him's account, his presence a testament to the story's truth. Clad in a beaded vest, his horse tethered nearby, Curley shared the same trails and dangers. White Man Runs Him sought no fame, only to etch the sacred history into memory before joining his ancestors. Historians estimate that fewer than 50 native scouts served with Custer, making their testimonies rare and vital. The elders' insistence on accuracy, as noted by scholar Herman Viola, counters myths that inflate individual heroics, like later tales of Curley as the sole survivor. His narrative was a collective effort to honor the Crow's role, not to chase glory. This call for corroboration strengthens the account's credibility, refuting exaggerated survivor stories. It reflects a native ethos of communal truth, prioritizing the collective over personal acclaim. On the 24th of June, 1876, Custer's expedition, numbering 600 soldiers and 40 scouts, camped near Busby, Montana, under a sky heavy with tension. White Man Runs Him, alongside Hairy Moccasin and Goes Ahead, borrowed sturdy cavalry horses, their hooves kicking up dust as they rode 5 miles to a Crow lookout. Perched on a ridge between the Rosebud and Little Horn rivers, this vantage point offered a sweeping view of rolling hills and shimmering waters. The scouts, in fringed tunics, scanned the horizon, their eyes trained for signs of the Sioux. Historian Nathaniel Philbrick describes this ridge as a sacred Crow site, used for generations to monitor enemies. The serene landscape, dotted with wildflowers, masked the storm brewing below. The strategic choice of the lookout underscores the Crows' mastery of their lands, honed over centuries. The tranquil setting, juxtaposed with impending conflict, highlights the scouts' burden to foresee danger. Fading light on the 24th of June thwarted the scouts' first reconnaissance, veiling the Sioux's position in shadow. White man runs him. Rifle in hand, led his companions back to camp, their report sparse after a 10-mile round trip. The setting sun, casting a crimson glow, frustrated their keen senses, honed to read the land's whispers. Scholar Thomas Powers notes that environmental challenges, like dusk, often shaped frontier warfare, testing even the most skilled scouts. The trios returned to Busby, where 600 soldiers awaited, carried a quiet unease, the silence louder than words. This setback reveals the scouts' reliance on natural cues, limited by nature's whims. It underscores their perseverance, a testament to native resilience often ignored in military accounts. After sunset, Mitch Boyer, his half-Sioux features stern, led White Man runs him and an officer, likely Lieutenant Barnum, back to the lookout. They followed the Lodge Pole Trail, a 12-mile path winding from the Rosebud to the Little Horn, under a starlit sky. Arriving at 2 a.m., they hid their horses in a sheltered hollow, their breaths hushed as they awaited dawn. Boyer, in a leather coat, carried a rifle, his bilingual skill a bridge between worlds. Historian Evan Connell emphasizes the trail's role as a vital artery for Crow and Sioux alike, known to scouts like the veins of their hands. The midnight ride, covering rough terrain, showed their unyielding resolve. The scouts' nighttime trek highlights their endurance and terrain mastery, critical yet undercredited. The contrast with the officers' presence reveals a dependency on native guidance, rarely acknowledged. At dawn on the 25th of June, smoke curled from the Sioux camp in the Little Horn Valley, revealing a village of 2,000 teepees and 4,000 warriors. White Man runs him, perched on the ridge, spotted grazing white horses and Sioux riders moving toward Davis Creek, 1.5 miles west. 6 more Sioux patrolled near Tulloch Creek, their movements sharp and alert. Historians, like Robert Utley, estimate the Sioux and Cheyenne forces at 7,000 total, including non-combatants, dwarfing Custer's 600 men. The smoke, rising in slender columns, signaled a united native front. The scouts' early detection was pivotal, yet it foreshadowed Custer's impossible odds. The Sioux's vast presence, a symbol of resilience, challenges narratives of their defeat as inevitable. Custer, in a buckskin jacket, his blonde hair flowing, climbed the ridge to view the Sioux village, sprawling like a living tapestry. He declared his intent to crush the Sioux, numbering 4,000 warriors, and build a fort at the Little Horn and Bighorn confluence to protect the Crow and 2,000 settlers in Montana. His voice, firm with resolve, echoed ambition. Historian John Gray notes Custer's plan ignored warnings from scouts, who saw the Sioux's strength. His promise to the Crow, while earnest, carried a paternalistic tone, assuming their reliance on military aid. Custer's bold words reveal hubris, underestimating the Sioux's unity. His fort-building vow, while strategic, dismisses the Crow's agency, a recurring theme in frontier history. The scouts, gripping rifles, estimated 4,000 to 5,000 Sioux warriors, their fear growing as 2 Sioux riders spotted their ridge position. This discovery, noted by historian Gregory Michno, ruined hopes for a surprise attack, a tactic Custer favored in prior campaigns, like the Washita in 1868. White Man runs him, his deerskin tunic stained with dust, felt a coiled dread, sensing the Sioux's overwhelming might. The vast camp, with 2,000 teepees in a perfect circle, symbolized native unity. The scouts' apprehension, grounded in observation, contrasts with Custer's confidence. Their accurate estimate, later confirmed by archaeological surveys, challenges inflated post-battle figures. White Man runs him, drawing on his knowledge of hidden coulees and swift streams, advised Custer to advance along Ash Creek, also called Reno Creek, pausing before the exposed Little Horn Valley to avoid ambush. The creek's 9-mile path offered cover, unlike the open valley where 4,000 Sioux waited. Custer, atop his horse, nodded, his 600-man column moving briskly. Historian Stephen Ambrose praises the scouts' terrain expertise, which shaped Custer's route but could not temper his haste. The advice aimed to protect the troops, reflecting Crow loyalty. The scouts' strategic foresight, rooted in intimate land knowledge, contrasts with Custer's aggressive pace, exposing a critical disconnect in command. Along Ash Creek, the column found an abandoned lodge, its lone occupant a Sioux warrior, dead from wounds likely sustained in the Battle of the Rosebud on the 17th of June, 1876, where 1,000 Sioux clashed with General Crook's 1,300 men. The body, wrapped in a blanket, lay 9 miles from the creek's mouth. Historian D. Brown notes this find as a grim omen, linking the campaign to earlier violence. The scouts, passing the lodge, felt the weight of ongoing conflict. The discovery connects the Little Bighorn to a broader war, underscoring the toll on native lives, often reduced to mere prelude in military histories. Custer ordered Major Marcus Reno, leading 140 men, to ford the Little Horn River and strike the Sioux village's northern edge, 2 miles from the camp. A dust cloud near the creek's outlet, misread as 1,000 Sioux fleeing, spurred the command. Reno, in a blue uniform, led his troop across the river's shallow waters. Historian Robert Utley notes Custer's misinterpretation, driven by overconfidence from prior victories, like the Washita. The order split the 7th Cavalry, weakening its cohesion. The dust cloud error reveals Custer's tactical flaw, fragmenting his force. Reno's mission, a diversion, exposed the campaign's flawed strategy. Half Yellowface and White Swan, in beaded vests, were tasked to spy on the Sioux's 2,000 teepees, but instead trailed Reno's 140-man troop. Mitch Boyer, his rifle ready, led White Man Runs Him, Curley, and Harry Moccasin to the ridge to observe the village. Historian Thomas Powers highlights the scouts' autonomy, a contrast to rigid military orders. The village, nestled among cottonwoods, buzzed with life, unaware of the looming assault. The scouts' deviation reflects battlefield fluidity, challenging the Army's strict hierarchy. Their choice underscores native agency, often overlooked. Custer, with 210 men, descended Medicine Tail Creek toward the Little Horn River, his buckskin figure charging at the head. Thousands of Sioux warriors, perhaps 2,000 strong, erupted from their positions, halting his crossing in a storm of arrows and bullets. Historian Gregory Micknow estimates the Sioux's rapid response overwhelmed Custer's troop in minutes. The scouts, watching from the bluffs, saw his golden hair glint one last time. The Sioux's tidal wave of fury showcases their martial prowess and unity. Custer's failed crossing marks the collapse of his plan, a tragic turning point. Mitch Boyer, his half-Sioux face resolute, ordered the scouts to retreat to the pack train, declaring their duty done. He galloped to Custer's side, falling with 210 soldiers on the ridge, where 268 total casualties were later counted. White Man Runs Him, Curley, and others fled, their horses pounding the bluffs. Historian John Gray notes Boyer's loyalty, a poignant contrast to the scouts' survival. Their retreat preserved native voices for history. Boyer's sacrifice versus the scouts' escape reflects the complex balance of duty and survival, ensuring the Crow's story endured. The Little Horn Valley, stained with the blood of 268 soldiers and countless native warriors, fell silent as the sun dipped on the 25th of June, 1876. Mitch Boyer's final charge alongside Custer sealed his fate, a loyal guide lost to the chaos of ambition. White Man Runs Him, Curley, and their fellow Crow scouts, driven by love for their homeland, escaped to carry this truth forward. Their voices, preserved through oral tradition, honor the Sioux's 4,000 warriors, who fought to protect their way of life against a force of 600. Historian Robert Utley calls this battle a clash of cultures, where native resilience shone against overwhelming odds. The Crow, caught between survival and duty, bore witness to a tragedy that reshaped the plains. What can the sacrifice of 268 lives and the strength of 4,000 warriors teach us about the cost of pride and the enduring spirit of native peoples? Their legacy, whispered in the winds, demands our respect and reflection,